What's up, guys? This week I want to review a movie called True Grit. Now this is the real True Grit, alright? If you see the title of this video and you click on it thinking it's that Coen Brothers movie, this ain't it. Alright? This is True Grit. The Coen Brothers movie is true shit. Okay? Just be clear on that. But this movie stars John Wayne, Glenn Campbell, Kim Darby. This is famously known as being the movie that John Wayne won the Academy Award for, which I still say John Wayne should have won the Academy Award at least 7 times, because there were 6, 7 more other movies he was more deserving for than this one. But, you know, it's a good movie, and I've seen this movie more times than I can count. People that know me will tell you that I didn't just start watching this True Grit because there was a remake that came out a few years ago. I've been a John Wayne fan since, you know, I've been watching John Wayne movies since before I could even probably walk. Or when I started, you know, I was about 4 or 5 years old, I guess. You know, yeah, okay, it wasn't before I could walk, but it was, you know, when I was real young, I guess probably 4 or 5 years old, you know, when I was real young, you know. John Wayne is my hero. So I've seen this movie first before I even knew what a remake was. And then when I got older, started becoming more of a movie fan and a movie buff and a movie critic. The Coen Brothers in 2010 come out with a movie called True Shit. I was like, ugh. And what makes me mad is they remade a John Wayne movie. And no one cared. Everybody's like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know. What would have happened? I would have liked to see what would have happened if they'd have tried to remake a Clint Eastwood film. Now, I'm not trying to make an argument out of this, but I'm just saying. You know, I like Clint Eastwood. I've got a lot of Clint Eastwood's films. You know, I got his westerns, his Dirty Harry movies. I like Clint Eastwood. You know, but I like John Wayne more. I always wonder, if they'd have remade a Clint Eastwood movie, how many people would have boycotted and sent death threats to the Coens if they remade a Clint Eastwood film. You know, just a thought. But, you know, True Grit is about a young girl named Maddie Ross, played by Kim Darby in this one, whose dad's murdered by Tom Chaney. And she wants to hire a marshal to go after him. Well, throughout this movie, you hear about Rooster Cogburn, John Wayne's character. You hear about him. You don't see him for like the first, I think, 35, like the first 30 minutes of this film, you don't see him. You know, but his legend is being built onto. There's a scene where she walks into the courthouse and the sheriff's there, and she asks about who's the best marshal they have. And he says the meanest is Rooster Cogburn. You know, a double tough man, you know, pitiless man, double tough, you know, fear, you know, don't have any fear. Fear doesn't enter his thinking at all. And so she wants to go after him. Well, along the way, she meets the Texas Ranger, played by Glenn Campbell. Now, Glenn Campbell, this is the only film he ever did. First and only film he ever made. His performance ain't that good. Of course, they said, I've read reports and I've seen interviews that Glenn Campbell's done that he said that Henry Hathaway was extremely hard to work for. But, you know, he's the brash, young, arrogant Texas Ranger. And then, of course, you kind of see a little bit of some tension between him and Maddie. Then it gets into where you see John Wayne sitting high on a horse. And there's that old saying that they have for westerns that says, you know, he could sit a horse, you know, which kind of means, you know, he had good balance and posture on a horse. Nobody could sit a horse like John Wayne. He had the greatest, flawless, fluid motion sitting on a horse. And, you know, they kind of make a little family out of him. And this movie's a product of the times, you know, based on the novel by Charles Portis, and it's based on the 60s. It's kind of a western version of what was going on in the 60s at the time. You know, of course, John Wayne kind of being the epitome of the old way, the old-fashioned what they considered outdated way of doing things, and the new things coming in around him, and he's one of the last of the old-fashioned thing, old-fashioned way of doing stuff. And you can kind of see it mirrored a lot of what was happening in the 60s in his career. John Wayne needed this movie. What few people don't know is the year before he made a movie called The Green Berets, which is a terrible movie. It's one of the worst films John Wayne ever done. And he lost money, and that almost ended his career. And he needed something to resurrect his career. And the story goes that he'd read the book by Charles Portis, True Grit, loved it, wanted to make a movie about it. And he bid on the movie rights and lost the movie rights out to Henry Hathaway. Well, Henry Hathaway was a good friend of John Wayne's. He won the rights to make the movie, called Duke, said, honestly, Duke, who else could play Rooster Cogburn? That role, is yours. And so if you want it, John Wayne got the part. And the rest, of course, is history as far as getting to play Rooster Cogburn. Now, I've read and, like interview articles and seen interviews where Charles Portis has said many times that he kind of, when he wrote the book and they were going to adapt it to a movie, that he knew he had John Wayne in mind. He said the only person that could play Richard Cogburn is John Wayne. There's only one living actor could ever do it and do it right, and he had John Wayne in mind for it. And this role fits John Wayne like the proverbial glove. I mean, there he is, and the awesome thing about it is it shows you how, much a professional John Wayne is. He's, as a professional, he knew every one of his lines. He knew everybody else's lines. And he had had a lung removed 4 years prior in '65. Here he is 4 years later, one lung acting, giving a tour de force performance. Now, a little bit of information people may not know is that the eye patch is not in the book. If you read the book, Rooster Cogburn has a mustache, like a handlebar mustache or some form of mustache. John Wayne did not want a mustache. He said, if I wear a mustache, people's not going to know it's me. They're not going to know it's John Wayne. So the people they created the eye patch for the eye. Which brings me back to the Coen brothers version. The Coens said that their whole movie was 100% based on the book. Okay, but yet they took the eye patch from this movie. So they're not based on the book. They stole from this movie. I've seen this film, and I saw the Coens. I know this film in my head and by heart. And when I watched the Coens, I was grading it. And about 85% of the Coen brothers is scene for scene recreation of this film. It's scene for scene, line for line, dialogue for dialogue, scene for scene. Exactly the way this one is. See, they pulled the wool over everybody's eyes because they knew this generation's never seen this movie, so they told them it was based on the book, and all these stupid young fans today would buy it. Oh yeah, it's based on the book, that John Wayne version. No. This is coming from a guy that grew up on these movies. I've seen it. 100%, 85% recreation of this one. 85% come from here. Exact scene, exact line for line. And it's not in the book that way. It was written for the script for John Wayne. The Rooster Cogburn scenes was written that way for John Wayne. It's scene for scene exactly like that. All they did was they kept the eye patch, which ain't in the book, and they just put it over on this eye. And Jeff Bridges sucks in that movie, and I like Jeff Bridges. I think he's a good actor, but he sucks in that movie. He's like he grumbles. You can't understand a word he's saying. He's trying to stray so far away from what John Wayne did that even I firmly believe you could put the subtitles on the Coen Brothers True Shit movie. Every time Jeff Bridges said something, the subtitles say, "Hey man, I'm as confused as you are." That'd be what the subtitles would say. But if you've never seen this one and you saw the remake, don't believe the lies and believe the bull crap that the Coen said about it being completely based on the novel. Because this is coming from somebody that's an expert, that's seen this movie, that knows, that watched this film the day that he went and watched the other one, you know, and has seen this film more times than I can count, and I know it scene for scene almost and can quote it almost line for line. And what I saw in the Coen Brothers version is almost a complete reproduction of this. But give it a try. This is one of John Wayne's better films. It's one of his best films of the late part of his career. It's come out in '69, so you know he's near the end of his career there. And this is one of the best films of that later part. And it's well worth a watch. I'm sure many people's grandparents have seen this film. I love it. I enjoy it. I watch it every time it comes on TV. And, you know, I'm one of the few people that has this on both, you know, VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. And that may make me sound old, is to say I've got that. You know, I'm only 25, but I've got VHS tapes, so it kind of makes me feel like an old guy, because I've got VHSs, you know. But the Blu-ray picture of this clears a bell. And if you ain't got it, get the Blu-ray of it. You won't be disappointed. You'll be entertained. I wouldn't recommend this to somebody if you want to make them a John Wayne fan. Like I've said, if you want to be a John Wayne fan or make someone a Western fan, you let them watch The Searchers, Rio Bravo, then this film. Don't let them, you know, if you want them to be a John Wayne fan, let them watch The Searchers first, because that's John Wayne's greatest role ever. But, you know, if you want a good watch, entertaining, this movie, it's rated G, so it's for the whole family, which all John Wayne's films are family films. John Wayne always felt that if a producer made a movie, then he felt that they should make movies that they could sit down with their little kids and have to watch, and if they couldn't do that, they had no business making movies. So it's a real good movie. I'm not going to spoil it for you and tell you a whole lot about the plot, because you probably know it if you've seen this one or seen the other one. You know the plot to this, but it's really entertaining. You get guest starring appearances from Jeremy Slate, Robert Duvall, Strother Martin, who's a great character actor, better known as the Warden, who says what we've got here is failure to communicate from Cool Hand Luke, and also a young Dennis Hopper. I think this was only the second. This is one of the first films Dennis Hopper ever made. One of his first movies was a John Wayne film called Sons of Katie Elder, which Henry Hathaway did, and then he's in this one. Of course, Robert Duvall played Ned Pepper, and you want to see more of Ned Pepper because it is Robert Duvall. But overall, superb cast all the way through. Most of the characters you like, unlike in the new one, you could care less about them. In this one, you want to see more of the smaller characters. But that's my review, my thoughts on the True Grit, the real True Grit. If you're not a John Wayne fan, check it out anyway. You might like it. If you've seen this one and prefer it, that's fine. But if you know somebody that's never seen this film, and they're looking to build, I've always said that there's certain movies you want to build your movie collection with, and they're just now starting to get into westerns, recommend this one. Find it wherever it is. Buy it, whatever. You can get this thing at Walmart on Blu-ray for $10. Buy it, let them watch it. So there because it is a prime piece of movie cinema history, and I can watch it constantly. But give me your thoughts. What's your thoughts on this movie? What did you think about this? What did you think about what they called the remake? Which technically, they called it a revision, but it is a remake. 85% of it is, and everybody knows my feelings on remakes. I hate remakes. There are a few that are okay, but I hate a majority of them. But leave your comments below. I love hearing from you. What's your thoughts on this one? Which film did you like better, of this one or the 2010 version? please let me know. I'll see you later.